Good evening. I call to order the meeting of the Village of Burr Ridge Mayor and Board of Trustees for September 12, 2022. Can I have Patricia Schiappa lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good, Patricia. We have a substitute Madam Clerk, but boy, an A-teamer. Can you take the roll, please?
Sure. Trustee Francis.
Here.
Trustee Schiappa.
Here.
Trustee Paveza.
Here.
Trustee Snyder. Trustee Mattel.
Here.
Trustee Smith.
Here.
All present. Mayor Grasso.
Mayor Grasso, here. Thank you. We have no presentations or public hearings tonight. That'll take us to item 4, the consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered routine by the board and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or citizen requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda, discussed, opened for public comment, and voted upon during this meeting. 5 minutes. A, approval of regular board meeting of August 8, 2022. B, receive and file Economic Development Committee meeting of August 3, 2022. C, receive and file Plan Commission meeting of August 15, 2022. Ordinances. A, approval of an ordinance granting an amendment to PUD ordinance number A 834-2415 to permit a gas station development, a special use for an automobile gasoline sales station with convenience, food store, packaged liquor, and tobacco sales, a special use for hours of operation exceeding 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., permitting a 24-hour operation, and a special use for an outside sales display accessory to a special use. C-10-2022, 9115 Kingery Highway, Thornton's, LLC. B, approval of an ordinance granting a variation from section 11C9C2 of the zoning ordinance to permit an average food candle light level of 4.39 exceeding the 1.0 permitted, and a uniformity ratio of 4.39 to 1 exceeding the 4 to 1 permitted. Z10-2022, 9115 Kingery Highway, Thornton's, LLC. C, approval of an ordinance granting variations from sections 5506A1, 5506A2, 5506A4, A, and 5506A4B of the sign ordinance to permit ground and wall signs in excess of 100 square feet of area measuring 155 square feet more than one wall sign per street frontage for a total of 3, a freestanding gasoline pricing sign, and to exceed the maximum sign face square footage for a gasoline pricing sign from 20 square feet to 49.8 square feet and 40 square feet to 99.6 square feet. Z10-2022, 9115 Kingery Highway, Thornton's, LLC. And D, approval of an ordinance granting a conditional sign approval for a sign with 6 colors exceeding the 3 colors permitted. Z10-2022, 9115 Kingery Highway, Thornton's, LLC. Item E, approval of an ordinance denying a variation from the Burr Ridge zoning ordinance to permit a detached accessory building within the corner side yard area and within the corner side yard setback from 30 feet to 10 feet, VO3 2022, 10 South 675 Glen Drive, Rohan. And F, approval of an ordinance authorizing the sale of online auction of personal property owned by the Village of Burr Ridge, Public Works, and police vehicles. 7, resolutions. A, approval of a resolution regarding the need for confidentiality of closed session minutes. And B, approval of a resolution providing for a lease agreement between the Village of Burr Ridge and the Willowbrook Burr Ridge Chamber of Commerce and Industry. 8, considerations. E, approval of an intergovernmental agreement between the Pleasantdale Park District and the Village of Burr Ridge regarding the policing of Park District property. F, approval to direct staff to prepare an ordinance approving a Plan Commission recommendation approving a special use amendment for outdoor dining at a restaurant. Z21, 2022, 510 Village Center Drive, Cooper's Hawk. G, approval of a proclamation designating October 2022 as Arts DuPage Month in the Village of Burr Ridge. H, approval of a request for a raffle license for the Illinois Spina Bifida Association and hosting facility license for the Village Center for the car show on October 1, 2022. I receive and file resignation letter of Police Officer Ashley Ganich. J, approval of vendor list dated August 22, 2022 in the amount of $640,585.88 for all funds, plus $201.59.35 for payroll for period ending August 6, 2022, for a grand total of $841,645.23, which includes no special expenditures. And finally, K, approval of vendor list dated September 12, 2022 in the amount of $656,659.70 for all funds, plus $203,174.33 for payroll for period ending August 20, 2022 for a grand total of $859,834.03, which includes no special expenditures. Okay, so can I get a motion for the following items on the consent agenda? 5A, B, and C, 6A, B, C, D, E, and F, 7, resolutions A and B, 8, considerations E, F, G, H, I, J, and K.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a movement, a second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Chiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Mattel?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Paveza?
Yes.
6-0.
6-0, the motion passes. That takes us all the way down to considerations. 8A, discussion of migrant stay in the village. I have a hunch that's why most of the people are here tonight. And I put this on the agenda, and if I hadn't put it on the agenda, I'm so sure one or all of the trustees would have, so that we have keeping everybody up to date on this situation. We did issue we did issue 2 statements out to the public. Hopefully all of you received them, outlining what we knew. Let me tell you what we didn't know. We did not know that this was happening. I don't think any of the trustees found out until I received a call from a friend at the DuPage County Board of Health advising me that a meeting had been called to discuss the busing of the migrants from the city of Chicago to Burr Ridge, and to specifically the Hampton Inn in DuPage County, which is why DuPage County was ultimately involved. I called Heaven, I called a couple of others, Chief Madden, and we found out that they were already here and in the hotel. By the way, this is not about the migrants. They have been of perfect behavior. They are seeking freedom, probably from conditions that were similar, worse, or at least almost as bad as any of the immigrants that all of us are probably the result of, and why we're here tonight. So it isn't about them seeking freedom. It isn't about them wanting a better life. I'm certainly proud as the mayor of Burr Ridge that someday they'll be able to tell their families that they got their freedom and started their life in America in the great small village of Burr Ridge, Illinois. What did trouble me a lot is that I was not in a position, the members of the Board of Trustees was not in a position, the staff was not in a position to answer the logical questions of public safety, of health concerns, of whether or not there were any unaccompanied minors, of the status of whether they were legal or illegal, which was very important to me and this board and this village. And the parentheses there is that I have been told that they are all from Venezuela, and as a result, they have been given asylum-seeking status, which I understand is temporary, and will require some court proceedings. I still don't know if those court proceedings will be here in the Illinois, Chicago Federal District, or whether or not it's back in Texas where they came from, where they crossed, and a myriad of other questions. Are they eligible for matriculation at our public schools? The answer, I'm told, is yes. Can they be employed? I think we're still trying to figure that out, and we've gotten a number of businesses and residents seeking information to see if they can offer employment to any of the migrants. I have had a number of you send me emails, and I'm sure the board has gotten them also, about how whether or not we can provide food and clothing and any of their needs. I will tell you that I've been there twice, and I have observed that they are all well-groomed, and I said well-behaved. They seem to be adequately fed. I'm told there are no health issues of any of them. Right now, I think all of their needs are being met. So we'll get a little bit more information tonight. I did note and found out that there was someone from the Illinois Department of Human Services or Resource Services who is there 24/7, Ms. Lopez. I invited her to come tonight. I don't see her here yet, to answer any questions you might have. I know she wanted to come, and if she's not here, I suspect that well, I'd only be guessing why she's not here. She told me she'd be here. And let's see, I have spoken to the hotel. I spoke to the manager, who is a member of our Economic Development Committee. I've spoken to the owners of the hotel, and I have inquired about how they came about to get the migrants. I'm now told that the state of Illinois had a relationship with a hotel association that places business, if you will, in hotels, and that the state of Illinois, through this association, placed the migrants in our Hampton Inn. I also learned for the first time during this process that the Hampton Inn had been used in February to temporarily house Afghan refugees who had been already in immigration centers and elsewhere in the United States. And those that were sent here was because they had housing options in the general community around us. Of course, we have a large Muslim presence and facilities, and our neighbors and our friends and community members here, and so it would not be unusual for people from Afghanistan to come here and seek housing. I understand that was supposedly the basis upon bringing the migrants to the Hampton Inn. To me, that's an apples and oranges situation, and is not an excuse for not letting me, the staff, and the trustees know about what was happening. So with that, that is the quantum of my knowledge right now, and we are still gathering information. I will add another editorial comment. Yesterday, during the Bears game, I received a call from Mayor Lori Lightfoot on my cell phone. And after a few minutes and her calming down, we had a very professional mayor-to-mayor conversation. She admitted to me that we had every right to know. We had every right to know in advance. This board had every right to know, and this board had every right to know in advance. And that was inexcusable. She said that that was not the city of Chicago's fault, that that was the state of Illinois' fault, that they had taken over the placement of the migrants. I did politely question her as to why she would then welcome migrants to the city of Chicago apparently not have a plan, at least from my perspective, and then turn them over to the state of Illinois, who would then place them where, if you invited them to the city of Chicago. It also kind of begged the question why they couldn't find room for 64 families, I think 25 to 30, 64 individuals, 25 to 30 families within the city of Chicago. So that was a question she couldn't answer either, and again deferred to the state. So as of this moment, I still have not received a call from the governor's office. We have been disparaged by the press secretary of the governor, which must have been, I presume, with the approval of the governor, which is an interesting way to react to legitimate questions of the voting public. And to me, personally, shows the disdain that the governor has for anyone who questions what is done by the governor or the state of Illinois. That's not the way it should be. We should be in a position to be able to question politely, when we should be polite also, and get a polite and considered answer and not be disparaged. I've said it several times today to the news media. This is a diverse community. We are proud of our diversity. This is a successful community. We are proud of our success. This is a place we call a very special place. We're proud to call it a special place. And we will welcome this situation and these people because they are being used as pawns, in my opinion, in this situation, and we should not take out the poor way and the poor communications that the city had with us and the way the state of Illinois and the governor's office in particular is still treating us and still has not communicated with us or the staff. So that's my editorial for tonight, and we'll of course take public comment, but the first thing I want to do is give an opportunity to the trustees to say anything that they would like to say. Yes.
I think we're always welcome to, or open to welcoming new residents to the village, but I think we should have been informed because we are responsible and accountable to the residents and responsible for their safety. And I think, yes, you were right in saying that we needed to be informed prior to people just showing up.
Okay. Anyone else?
I think you covered pretty well, Mayor.
Thank you. So, yes, sir. So here's what we're going to do tonight. If anybody has questions or comment, I'm going to, since this is a agenda topic, this is the appropriate time for your questions or comment on this subject. You don't have to wait till public comment. If you want to wait till public comment, you can, but this would be the appropriate time to do that. What I'd ask you to do, because we have to keep a record, is to come up to the podium and state your name and whether or not you're a resident of the village. You don't have to give your address, and then address the board and or me and ask any questions or make any comments you wish. Technically, we have a 5-minute limit. I'd ask you to be respectful of that time. I'm certainly not going to cut anybody off. So, who would like to go first? Yes.
Good evening. My name is Tully Davia. I've been a long-time resident of Burr Ridge. My late wife and I bought our home in Burr Oaks Glen South in 1986. I'd like to say, first of all, I completely support the way the mayor has handled this issue of migrants. He's basically made it a non-issue. However, I do have a bone to pick with the governor. His spokesperson, who I don't know who that is, referred to the mayor and the citizens of this fine village as xenophobic. Possibly he doesn't understand what the term means, but it's a direct insult, not only to the mayor, but also to the citizens of this village. And I think the governor owes you, Mr. Mayor, an apology, and he owes the citizens of this village an apology. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Knutson. I reside recently in Burr Ridge, and first and foremost, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had the opportunity to speak to you on Friday, and that is, you returned my call, and that just speaks volumes to me, and I want to thank you publicly for doing that. And I think everything that you had to say right here, right now, was lovely. But the way this world is, I do not have any more confidence in our federal government as things are going. And so I guess my first question would be, how do we know that this ends with just 64? How saying, you know, I would love to believe that these are all decent and lovely families and all of that. I wish I could. But we have gotten so far away from that. So how do we know, you know, by saying that they're vetted or whatever, I don't know if that means much to me anymore. How do we know that there aren't more coming? And you have no, obviously, I feel for your position as far as they just showed up, I get it, but you can't send them back. You can't do, what kinds of things are put into place if we get, I mean, look at Texas. I mean, they've had, what, 1 million? I mean, where does it stop? And how do we know? And I know that that's somewhat of a crystal ball question because you don't know, but isn't it that, what kinds of things do we put in place? I mean, we have to be still being able to live here and be feeling comfortable and protected and also to keep our town lovely.
Okay, so one of the first things we all did, Evan and I and the chief and the deputy chief was met, and we discussed what should be done and what should not be done and what the status of the situation was. I was reinforced by the chief and the deputy chief that there had been no incidents and everything was fine. And we decided as the four of us to conduct business as normal in the village. That there was not going to be a strain on the resources of the village by 64 people. We did determine that the state of Illinois was paying, and they weren't looking to any, obviously, tax dollars from us, although in the long run, of course, it's everybody's tax dollars. And I understand the state is paying for it and will be looking for maybe reimbursement through grants or is going to try to use federal grant money. Then I did, I think as I said, I called the manager of the hotel, who's working with us. He was put in a difficult situation, but I made it very clear to him verbally. I went over and met with him personally and also sent him a very detailed email that in the Italian language, basta, enough. And unless we hear again in advance and let this board and you citizens know if that's what we want to do, which is, I think, our right, there should be no more of such visitors to the village without the express approval from me having conferred with the board. And I'm pretty sure that won't happen again. I'm also getting out to all the other hotels a similar message in the village that hotels are here for travelers, for sporting events, for conventions, weddings, all the things, and immigration issues and migrant issues and refugee issues are not within the usual and customary license of a hotel, and that would take a special request to the village and the board for that to ever happen again. So I will get that message out clearly. You know, who would have known that we would have had to do this, okay? But we will now have a policy about this, and we will address this. I think I know how this board is and how this village is. I've been here a long time, like many others, and we're open and welcoming, and we're good Americans, but, you know, this is our village, and this is our house, and we want to know who's here and under what circumstances, and that's what the real issue is. And so, as your mayor, I'm promising you that that's the way it's going to be handled.
Okay, and then I have another question in regards to the hotel owner, because now that also, after I spoke with you on Friday, a big story did about the Homeland Security, and it is a major story about when we pulled out of Afghanistan. And these are not good people that they have now, they are all over the country, and they are on lists as terrorists. These are not good people. And I question how this, in Burr Ridge, Illinois, a hotel, got that to me is very scary.
Mm-hmm. We still don't know the answer to that. The hotel owner that I spoke with told me that he is a member, like many hotels, of a certain trade group, you might call it, trade association that also does business with these types of situations with the state of Illinois. Again, this is indirect knowledge, but I'm also told that Elk Grove Village has now received, without the consent of the mayor, I think they just told him they were coming, so I think he had a little bit more knowledge than we did, but no real consent, and that they chose that hotel because that hotel had in the past been a place for needy and homeless people during COVID. So I don't know what the various criteria is. The justification the state is giving, as you may have read in the press secretary's statement, was that because some Afghan refugees had been put here in February, that gave them, of course, carte blanche to bring anybody else here they wanted to. Me, personally, I think the Afghan situation is much different than the migrant situation and the border situation, so I take exception with the governor on that.
So how are things going to be, like, what, are those people still here? Are they at that hotel still, the Afghans? Or
oh, no, it's my understanding it's my understanding that they had already been in immigration centers and placed for housing around the country, that the several that came here to several Afghans that came to the Hampton Inn were there to be placed in the greater community, Burr Ridge and all the surrounding communities around. I don't have any more detail than that, though, however.
Is that something that we keep tabs on, or
At this point, I don't think so. I did ask a direct question of the person from Human Resources or Services that how does she keep a head count? I'm not sure she was sure how she would keep a head count, but I didn't think that she saw it as a problem right now. But in fact, they could leave, probably. They're here, they're free, there's no, they have the same rights in terms of mobility and interaction and walking around as anybody else does.
I find that very disturbing and very scary.
Well, we're gonna stay on it, and we're gonna keep everybody safe.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Sure.
Hello, everyone. I'm Joe Cozy. I live in Burr Ridge for 33 years, and I have to tell you, I understand that people want freedom, so do we, and they shouldn't be taking away our freedom to give them their freedom. That's how I feel, and this to me is taking away our freedom of choice. Now, what I heard, and I need to get this clear, I thought I heard you say that when other people come in, they're going to let you know, and then you're going to discuss it among the board, and then you're going to make a decision. How about us citizens making the decision?
So before that gets running away, I want to be clear about that. There's been no indication at all that there's going to be any more requests that anybody comes here. Okay? If they make the request, I will certainly tell the board that the request is here, and I'll discuss it with the board, and we'll get it out to the residents and get their input. I don't think that's going to happen based on what's already transpired, but that would have been the right way to handle it to begin with, that they let us know, I could let the board know, and we could let the community know. And that's the best right now we'll be able to do, but I do believe, strongly believe, that there will be no other requests to put any other people here in Burr Ridge.
Do you have some, why do you believe that? Can I ask that question?
I will tell you, yes, I will tell you why. Because we made a stink about the procedure, and we made our position well-known, and I had the full support of this board to make our position well-known. I think we've articulated what the issue is. It's not about the migrants, it's about the procedure. So I think they'll respect the procedure, and I was reinforced with that with Lori Lightfoot's call yesterday, admitting, mayor to mayor, very professionally, she admitted, you have a right to know. You have a right to know because you need to keep your residents informed, and the answer, I don't know, is unacceptable. And I get it, Mayor, and here's my cell number, and if you have a question, please call me. I'm sure she's not going to put us in that situation again, but as they say, the only things that are certain are death and taxes.
Okay, so then I have another question. So if it comes about that they want to bring more people here, they're not citizens, more people here, and you discuss it, and then you let us know, do we have any kind of say, or is it we're just going to be told?
No, you're never going to be told, okay? You're going to have a say.
Okay, and if everybody doesn't want it, then what?
Then I think it's called the majority rule.
I hope so.
Will of the people is another phrase.
I hope so.
Yes.
I mean, can you assure us of that?
I can assure you of the communication. Certainly, you'll be the first to know.
No, that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking if you can assure us that if we as a group or as a majority would prefer not to have another 150 illegal immigrants coming here, will we be listened to or not?
You will be listened to.
Promise?
You want me to do that? Hope to God and all that? Yeah, I promise.
Just like you're being listened to tonight.
Truly?
Absolutely.
That's why it was put on the agenda, so you could actually discuss it. I felt very strongly, this board felt very strongly that we needed to have it on the agenda since our meeting was forthcoming, so you could be here tonight and express your opinions.
Okay, and then last question. These people that are coming, the 150, are they vetted at all?
Okay, wait. Let's get
Okay.
back to numbers. There were only not only, but 64 people are here in the village.
Correct.
150 is the number that came in with that group, I'm told. I think it was actually 147 people came in, and somehow 64 of them came out here. I don't know what happened to the others.
Oh, so the 64 Afghanis are the only ones?
No. What? Okay. The 64 that are here right now
Okay.
are Venezuelans.
Oh,
The Afghan
Oh, okay.
situation that was used as the excuse by the state to send the Venezuelans here, that situation was in February, and that was resolved in February. They were here for a short period of time, I was told, and they went and were placed in housing that had already been arranged from when they were in centers somewhere else. This is not about the Afghans, it's not about the migrants either, but it's 64 migrants that are here from Venezuela who have been given asylum-seeking status.
all right, sorry, I misunderstood. But,
Yeah.
again, so I'm clear, we will be informed next time before any more
Yes.
migrants come. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Bowden Iwanitz, been here for 10 years in Burr Ridge.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the name.
Bowden Iwanitz, I've been here for 10 years, 11 years as a resident in Burr Ridge. You mentioned about Elk Grove Village. I have a point to clarify. Did you actually speak with the mayor, or are you going to speak with the mayor?
I'll speak with the mayor, Mayor Johnson.
Because
I have not spoken to the mayor, and this is the way I learned that today. I did give a number of interviews today from various news outlets, and they informed me that they had spoken to or been in contact with the mayor of Elk Grove Village, and he had a similar story. It's that the state used the basis that in his village, a hotel had been used for COVID patients or COVID homeless patients, and so they use that as a basis to send some of the migrants there. But I have not spoken to Mayor Johnson. I will try to reach out by tomorrow.
Yeah, I would like to, because you mentioned that he might have been informed, but they sent them anyhow. So I just for the citizens here, just if you could contact him and find out if he had any choice in the matter, because if they informed him and then told him he had no choice, then that's going to be the same situation here.
Okay, it's my understanding
Yeah.
right now, and I will clarify it, that he was informed, but he didn't have a choice.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So if that's the choice the state of Illinois gave him, I don't think it's going to be any different for us. And if that's the case, then I think it would be good for the board to write a letter to the governor and ask him if he is unilaterally deciding this, or if the citizens of the state have any.
I will certainly do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Malvina. I'm a resident of Burr Ridge, and I am originally from Venezuela. I came here and legally, and my family grew up here, and my grandchildren here. But I am concerned because I know the culture, and they feel always entitled. I'm being concerned, and my children are concerned, that I read that they're going to be 30 days in the hotel. So after 30 days, what happens?
So, yes, I've been told the same thing, 30 days, and after 30 days, I don't know yet what is going to happen, and I don't know about the asylum issue, and so those are questions that I have put to the person from Human Services, and that we're trying to, we've gotten no contact back from the governor's office. I have tried. And so I'm still very surprised that they have not come forward with someone with that kind of information for us.
I felt surprised that I purchased my food in Brookhaven, in both Darien and Burr Ridge, and I found it amusing that they have our product that we make the food. And they have it over, so they had a hint that they were gonna come. I had to go all the way to Aurora to get that particular flour to make our food, and Brookhaven carries it. So I'm thinking, do they know that they were coming? I literally, in Burr Ridge, have to go all the way to Aurora to get it.
Oh, so let me follow what you just told me, which is new information. So there are certain food products that Venezuelans like to use.
Correct.
That are
It's
not
called
on the
arepas.
average storefront.
Yes, they don't have it. You can go to Dominic's, you can go Mariano's, but now Brookhaven carries it. And my daughter told me, Mom, you don't have to go anymore to Aurora, they have it here.
So I know a pallet of food, I forgot to add that as a point, just reminded me, thank you. A pallet of food was dropped off yesterday from the Thursday from the food depository. I don't know what was on that pallet.
But they have it as for sale for customers. But I kind of surprised that they never had it, and suddenly they have their product. And my question is, we all immigrants, but if they really want to help these people or our people, they should have allocated them in a Spanish where they can get a bus. What do you think how are you gonna take a bus in County Line? It's all political. They just wanted to say, okay, we're gonna put it in the Republican suburb just to feel how they like it. This is my personal opinion, and we all pay high taxes, and we feel we're robbed of our freedom. I told my children, maybe put the lights, put the lights at night now, because I saw the videos, and some people go out of the bus like this. And I saw, because I have a channel that we see the news in my country, and they say that the president, that Maduro, actually gave new identity to some people, and they cleaned all the jails to send to kill Americans. So it's scary, because I came in 1976, but I am more American because all my children are born here, and my grandchildren are born here, so I'm scared. And it's a concern, and I saw the citizens in here, we are concerned. Because, and especially me, I know the kind of people that our people are. They feel entitled. So hopefully after 30 days, maybe if they really want to help, they should move them to West Chicago, Aurora, if they really want to help. So kids can integrate. I mean, really, I was coming here, and this is a true story. From the hotel, in frontage row, I wanted to see if anybody's outside. And in front of me is a car with 2 flags, and I'm thinking, oh my God, it might be Greek holiday, I did not know. Then the car was not moving. I go around, and then I start looking, and then all Spanish people clouded like a sardines. I came earlier, and then I Googled it. For some reason, I didn't know it was Honduras and Guatemala. So they're going to be bringing people. I hope not. I hope they feel they need to work, and this is not going to be somebody. My friends are saying, oh, they're Venezuelan. Maybe we can get nannies. I say, I will never bring a nanny that I don't know. But so I feel good if I can help them, but I'm afraid because I don't really know if they're good people. I really don't. So I hope for the best that God will protect all us and the residents, and also give them a good choice for these people to make a new life. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You're welcome. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm John Seinel, probably a 45-year resident. I'm just wondering, Mr. Mayor Grasso, have you had conversations about the new Safety Act? And I think everybody in this audience, especially I'm sure the police, because they'll be getting the calls, are concerned about that. What's going on in Springfield.
Absolutely.
And it's scary.
Yeah.
So I want to know if you've had any conversations with the governors. I know you tried to talk to the governor's office, but living not too far from here, within walking distance, I walk every day. And the one time in the last 2 weeks, over in the park, I did see some people that really aren't residents of Burr Ridge. They were actually necking on the bench. I mean, heavily necking on the bench, okay? And it's kind of like being a resident. You know the people of Burr Ridge, okay? Even the new one from Venezuela, okay?
I did 1976.
Oh, that's before me.
I came here 46 years ago.
Well, you came in before me. But I want you to be sure this board notifies the people of this community about that Safety Act and what we can do so that we protect our community. That's the main reason I came in today. Not because we're all xenophobic, as our governor said about us. Baloney, Mr. Governor. So thank you for listening to me.
Sure. Thank you for speaking out. Anyone else? Okay, that is the report for tonight. Any other comments from the board? Yes, Trustee Francis.
I just want to echo the comments that you made, Mr. Mayor. I agree with them and support them 100%. Having a heads up that these refugees were coming to the village would have allowed a lot of preparation to take place in advance. For example, I know many of the citizens in our village and in our communities are organizing donation campaigns. They're collecting donations to give to these refugees, clothing, toiletries, essentials that they may need in the future. And we could have had that prepared ahead of time, but we didn't. So now we're scrambling to help these people with these basic needs. And I know my neighbors are, and I'm glad that they are, and I'm proud that they are. We're all coming together. We could have had the opportunity to come together sooner and had a better response and better organized to help these people in their time of need. So I'm disappointed that our state government has let us down. I'm disappointed that in many ways, not only with this situation, but with the Safety Act you referred to. I'm also disappointed that the city of Chicago and their administration let us down, and Cook County as well. They all knew about it. They could have picked up the phone and called us, but they didn't. They chose not to.
Yeah, and as an interesting point, I don't know if any of you have seen the statement from the governor's press secretary that contained the disparaging comments, but I think the opening sentence said something like, in partnership with our partners, the County of Cook and the City of Chicago. They did not know that the Hampton Inn is in DuPage County.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
So I want to thank you, Mayor, for your leadership during this process. It's been very frustrating for you, staff, all of us, the police, the citizens. We're getting a lot of questions that we don't have answers for because we're not getting answers. I believe that someone does know the answers. We're just not getting them. I am getting a lot of requests for how to help, with clothing, shelter, food, and I appreciate that. And these are all from residents of the village of Burr Ridge. And that tells me how open we are as a village. But I do believe this is a partisan issue. The Afghans were here in February. They came and went, and none of us knew about it. All of us just learned about it now. But for some reason, this has hit the media. I think that it's because it's a partisan issue. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Yes.
Mayor, I also would like to applaud the work you've done this week with staff. You have represented Burr Ridge extremely well in a very tough situation. The bottom line is we are dealing with a reckless governor. The policies that we are seeing, I call it the hug a thug criminal justice bill that's coming around the corner. We have a lot of issues facing us as residents at the end of this year, and this is just all part of it. If the governor is really caring about these people, why didn't he stick them into the Hyatts? Pritzker's own Hyatt hotel. So, again, I applaud the work you've done for this village. You did a terrific job for us. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, we will keep you, I've promised, the board's promised, we get it, we know this village, we'll keep you informed. So, but if you have questions, everybody has our numbers, please get a hold of us right away. Okay, that'll take us to item B under considerations. Consideration of an award of contract for the construction of a new pathway on Garfield Avenue and the replacement of an existing pathway on Crammel Drive to Triggy Construction of West Chicago in the amount of $441,275. Evan? Dave?
Thank you, Mayor. I've come tonight to give you also 4 updates on 4 separate projects. I'll give you the updates on these 4 pathway sidewalk projects, some in various stages of development. We're starting with County Line Road from Longwood to 60th. We've seen that under construction for 4 seasons now. We started back in 2019. We're currently underway. It was kind of held up in 2019 as winter onset early. We held up in 2020 and 2021, got a late start. Due to other pandemic issues, we just couldn't finish either in 2021. So now finally in 2022, we got the sidewalk in. We're just now waiting on the guardrail and the upgrade of the pedestrian signal, and we should be wrapped up. So that should finish that project there. That brings us to the next segment of 79th Street. That pathway was discussed, as you know, at the Pathway Commission, and as staff advised, the asphalt paths are at the end of their useful life. 79th Street pathway from County Line Road to Burr Oak Lane is one of the 2 of highest priority, Crammel Drive being the other one. 79th Street, is under county jurisdiction, so we have to have detailed plans to get through Cook County Department of Transportation and Highways to get that asphalt path replaced. So we should have on the next board agenda of September 28th, September 27th, a board agenda item for the design engineering to replace the pathway on 79th Street. As part of that work, we'll also have a feasibility study with the consultant to look at the north side segment that we've talked about between the Ambriance pathway on the west to the Chasemore Drive on the east. We talked about that connection and the missing link between there and the Burr Oak Lane. So that should be on the next board agenda. Which again brings us to the third one now, is the Crammel Drive pathway replacement. That's the other pathway, asphalt path of highest priority for its condition. These are all Burr Ridge roads, so we can do this largely in-house. It's really just going to be a simple remove and replace of the asphalt path with concrete. We've had a great working relationship so far with the Crammel Estates HOA. We got out in front of that, and we've been working with them on some trimming and other landscaping enhancements that'll go concurrent with our pathway replacement project. But because it's so simple for economies of scale, we can lump that in with the Garfield Avenue sidewalk replacement project. So that brings us to the fourth and final one, on Garfield Avenue. Long time coming now, since 2019, we've kind of been in the design stage and on and off for various reasons. It's a really short segment now. Willowbrook has done a part. We're going to finish it up with about 370 feet in front of 4 Burridge properties with a striped and signed crosswalk over to Rogers Farm Road on the west side of Garfield Avenue. That the project includes only 5 trees to be removed, replacing 3 concrete driveways, of course construction of the sidewalk, and enclosure of the ditch with some storm sewer, regrading of the work, and just re-landscaping when we're done. So that design, we started back in 2019, but now, finally, a few years later, with the allocation of ARPA funds, we know there are funds allocated or left over that are going to be dedicated specifically to this project. So again, with those last 2, wrapping them up together, we went out to bid in August, on August 15th. We opened bids publicly on September 1st. The bid results are in your packet. And so tonight we're coming before you with a recommendation to award the contract to Triggy Construction. That estimate that bid came in 4.6% below the engineer's estimate. We anticipate starting construction towards the end of September, wrapping up by the end of November to finally complete those 2 important projects. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Start with the trustees. Anybody have a question of David? Yes.
Does this include the engineering for the sidewalks or just the construction?
For this last part, no, this doesn't include the construction engineering. That's a nominal fee that we've worked out with the consultant engineer.
Okay.
They'll just be continuing on.
Okay. Yes, Guy?
A couple questions, please. So to the Garfield Street pathway, you mentioned, confirming what you mentioned, that's continuing on the east side of the street, northbound, until we approach Rogers Farm Drive, entrance to that subdivision, Willowbrook. Then it crosses the street with a crosswalk, and then picks up the sidewalk on the west side of the street, continuing north. Is that correct?
Exactly correct. It has a small segment then that connects to Countryside Court, so for easy access.
Like 4 Burridge homes that it's traversing.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. A second question, you talked about 79th Street pathway replacement. We've had some informal discussions about upgrading the crosswalk on 79th Street at Woodside Lane. When do we start talking about that in earnest at the board level?
Sure. So we've already put a letter out to Cook County Department of Transportation and Highways. The 79th Street is under their jurisdiction to add signs immediately. It's lacking pedestrian warning signs. So we've asked for them to put up signs immediately. As part of the signs? Like we're going to be putting on Garfield Avenue, but even larger and further out. Just pedestrian crossing signs. Pedestrian crossing ahead, pedestrian crossing here with the arrows. Those signs on 79th Street.
And just a parentheses there, I sent a letter to Commissioner Morrison, who's our Cook County Commissioner here, trying to urge him to get involved also on the speed, on the hedges that are covering some of the signs, and some of the issues that you and I and the residents around Burr Oaks Glen, south and north, have been bringing up.
Okay. Our experience in the past with the county hasn't been that great. When we ask for things along 79th Street, bush trimming, enhancements, ditch repair. So I'm hoping we're going to have a plan B in place. If we don't get responses, we can put the signs up ourselves, do the enhancements ourselves to protect our residents.
Yeah, I think that's always, just like we patch the roads on County Line.
Exactly, just like we patch the roads.
So I asked David to do that regardless, rather than wait for the county, and he used our public works people and our resources to get that done. So we will, in the end, make sure it's safe. I'm hoping that a letter to Commissioner Morrison in an election year, in a close election, might get some response from him, but we'll see. So anybody else? You done, a guy, anything else?
Please keep us posted on that issue.
Will do.
That's a separate issue, but I have some interest in that.
Anybody? Good. All right, any citizens have any questions of David on any of these pathway projects, the 4 pathway projects? Yes.
Yes, my name is Dwayne Hong. I've got a question regarding the two projects here. The total sum in terms of what the bid price was is more than what was, I guess, budgeted or proposed for the Crammel pathway in addition to Garfield. Just trying to understand what the breakdown is originally $220,000 was budgeted for the completion of both the Burr Ridge and the Willowbrook sides of Garfield Avenue, and $125,000 for the Crammel pathway, which adds up to $345,000. And here we have bids of $400 at $400 and what, $41,000. So just want to understand that. Also with that is I'm also torn here whether I should be thanking the village and the trustees for responding to the sidewalk, or being disappointed that it took as long as it has. It's been very disappointing to see the Willowbrook side completely done before summer, and here I thought with the start of school, our students at Elm School would be able to use the sidewalk, and I actually see more bewilderment on folks that are using the pathway now, where it deads end again. So just want to bring that up to the village and the board that when there is safety issues at hand, we have to act swiftly. Unfortunately, from the time that when I initially spoke to the board back in March to today, there was a cyclist fatality on Wolf and 79th Street. These are things that are under the village's control, and I just asked the mayor, the board to act swiftly on these matters like this. Thank you.
Thank you. David, any response on the cost?
In the cost, it's a difference between the engineer's estimate and then the actual construction bids. And you can see that the finals engineer's estimate with detailed plans in place was right in line with the other bids. Because we also had a material producer strike earlier in the season, we also still have a cement shortage of the powdered ingredient in concrete. For several reasons economically, then the prices were escalated towards this fall.
Right, and just to be clear, I think at some point the one along Garfield was going to be a joint project with Willowbrook, and they decided, because of their schedule, which we have to respect, but they decided then not to do it with us on our timing, and they went ahead and did theirs before us. So there was going to be coordination of that project, but Willowbrook, is my understanding, decided that it wanted to do it quicker or earlier for other budget reasons and allocation reasons or grant reasons, and so that's why it was done that way. But originally it was supposed to be all done at once, yes.
Right, I would also note that the residents on this street in Burr Ridge also have buried sewer in front of their house. The Willowbrook residents do not. They have an open culvert. Dave is providing them an upgrade of service. Willowbrook also did not replace driveway aprons. They simply went right through a certain area. So thank you, Dave, for all your efforts. This is a complicated time to do capital projects. As everyone knows, the road program was delayed in place. Again, a lot of great communication from your team on that issue. Inflation is going up. I appreciate the board's support to get this done. This will get knocked out this construction season, and everyone will enjoy it. But as Mayor said, a number of factors going in on this project. But again, we do want to act swiftly whenever possible. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Any other questions or comments from the public? Anybody on the board level? Because we do have, did we get a motion and a second yet on this? So I need a motion and a second on consideration of award of contract for the construction of a new pathway on Garfield Avenue and the replacement of an existing pathway on Cromwell Drive to Triggy Construction of West Chicago in the amount of $441,275.
So moved.
Second. Got a movement and a second. Any other questions by any of the trustees? Any questions by the public? Roll call, please.
Trustee Mattel?
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa?
Yes.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Chiappa?
Yes.
6-0.
6-0, the motion passes. That takes us to 8C, presentation of fiscal year 2022 audit, police pension actuarial evaluation, and final budget report. Evan?
Thank you. These are 3 separate presentations. One will be done by this gentleman, the second will be done by Ian, and the third one will be done by Anne Marie. These are all information only, no action required, but we still wanted to provide you with a combined FY22 update.
Thank you, Evan. I said I'm Matt Barron, the audit partner for Lauterbach and Amon, who present the audit. Everyone was provided the materials, so I just want to keep a very high-level presentation here for tonight. As far as our procedures went, we came out to do our full audit procedures, starting from our beginning entrance conference, where we talk about the plan here at the village of how we're going to conduct our audit, through the preliminary field work where we review all of your internal control procedures for your significant cycles, like your accounts or your cash disbursements, cash receipts, payroll, utility billing, items of that nature that we review to make sure you have an adequate internal control framework in place. We then do full audit procedures where we test your numbers to make sure the numbers within this audit report are what they say they are, and then conduct report writing where we put your audit report in compliance with all government accounting standards to come to today. And as far as with that audit process, we came with an unmodified opinion, which is the highest opinion that we provide. Basically, each step along the way, each of those, you check the box. They had, the village has a full internal control framework in place to help prevent fraud. 2, the numbers within this audit report are what they say they are, based on our testing, and the audit report is in compliance with all government accounting standards. As I said, it's the highest opinion that we do provide. As far as the numbers within here, I know Anne Marie's going to cover that. So as far as the financial health of the village, other 2 points I'd like to add are significant note is we paid off, or the village was able to pay off the 2017 bonds. So now there's no longer any general obligation debt outstanding, which is a very big accomplishment for the village. And last year's audit report received the GFOA Certificate of Achievement Award. It's the highest opinion, or the highest award within government accounting that you can receive. We have submitted this year's audit for that award as well, and see no reason you will not receive that award again for this year.
Great. Any questions of any of the board members? Any questions of anybody in the public? I will note that the police pension fund looks healthy. It has slipped below 70%, but still is 66%. I'm sure that's somewhat a factor of the market, but in relative terms, we still have a very healthy police pension. Any question, Al?
The only question I had is to repeat the last sentence about the ability that the village has and its adaptation to the audit and the physical condition we're in, that it's one of the top ranked of the different rankings.
Yep. Yes, Anita?
But then if we've slipped below, below the 70% mark, I'm sure other neighboring villages must have done so too,
Right.
because it is probably as a result of the market.
Yeah, and the 70% mark is something that we are always try to keep at, but we have always had a very healthy, relatively healthy police pension result, and have never had any problem at all. But I just want to note that. Yes.
If we're going to get into place, I'd like to have Ian come up and present on the police pension. That was just the audit, so I apologize.
Okay.
I don't want to cut you guys off. Anything else?
No.
Thanks.
You have the expert coming in right behind me to answer all those questions.
Okay. Sorry, I jumped the gun, took
Oh,
your thunder away.
you're on the ball, Mayor.
Yeah.
You got
All
it.
right, go ahead. We'll take the next one.
All right.
Thank you very much, Mark.
And does everybody have a copy of this presentation, or should I pass it out for everybody, or?
I don't know if we have the slides.
I'll slide up there.
Sure.
Yeah, we have it.
Just so everybody's taking a look at some of these numbers.
Do you have copies?
I do, yeah, if
Have one,
you
pass it
want
here.
some.
I'll take it. Yeah.
I do. Well, they're double-sided.
I promise I'll be quick.
Yeah.
So if everybody didn't hear, my name is Ian Irvine. I'm an actuarial consultant over at Lauterbach and Amon. So we actually produced 3 reports for the Village of Burr Ridge, 2 being in regards to the police pension fund, the first being the actuarial funding report, which is going to be my main focus today, as well as the GASB 6768 for financial state reporting. We also produce a separate other post-employment benefits for retirees as well for the village, the GASB 7475 report, but I'm not going to touch on that as much as the actuarial funding report for the police pension fund. So flipping to that first slide here, the recommended contribution for this year for the police pension fund is coming in at $1,146,448, which is about a 4.77% decrease from the previous year. So a couple key numbers here to notice is the fair value of assets at the end of the fiscal year. It's coming in at $21.43 million. You'll also notice we have a separate actuarial value of assets coming in at $22.45 million. The difference between those two numbers is that the AVA includes a 5-year smoothing period of all previous year's gains and losses. And then using that AVA and subtracting that from the actuarial accrued liability, we come to an unfunded actuarial accrued liability of $10.02 million, and leaving you guys at a 69.15% funded on an AVA basis, which is what we would use to make our calculations. Any questions on that slide there?
What's the AVA again?
Sure. So the actuarial value of assets includes the past 5 years of any gains and losses in investment returns.
So it's an average.
So kind of how it works is we recognize, so say 4 years ago, you had $1 million in gains.
Yep.
20% of that would be recognized every single year for the next 5 years. Okay. So of that $1 million, only $200,000 would be recognized each year until it finally goes away, and that happens every single year for the past 5 years.
So what is the number we should focus on if we were going to focus on any AVA versus FVA?
Most likely AVA. That's what we use to make our calculations. The actuarial value of assets is what we use to come up with that unfunded liability of that $10.02 million there.
Okay, so that is closer to 70%. That's 69.1.
Right. And that's relatively in the realm of our other funds that we work with in the state of Illinois. Right around 65-60% is probably the average of our funds that we work with.
Okay, thank you.
Question, so this year we had a unrealized loss of, I think, $3.3 million in the market.
Mm-hmm.
This current year doesn't look very attractive either, so that would, I would believe, impact our AVA considerably if we have 2 major market losses in consecutive years, correct?
Definitely, yeah. And, you know, I do like to note that last year was also a very good year for investment returns in terms of fiscal year end. So that was quite a good investment year in the last fiscal year. So that is also helping to offset that actuarial value of assets. But as you mentioned, yeah, this year has not been a very great year for investment returns. So that'll definitely affect that AVA moving forward.
Thank you.
So just to piggyback on what he said, if we were to see the same report next year, our AVA would drop.
I guess it depends on what the investment return looks like, but yeah, like what we allocate for this year of investment returns, yeah, we would see that deferral, that 20% being recognized as a loss next year.
Thank you.
Okay.
Awesome. Any other questions? Perfect.
Well, I don't know if anybody else has any questions. All right, keep going unless you're done.
Sounds good. This next slide here is just the reconciliation of that recommended contribution. So just some increases and decreases we saw in different buckets for that recommended contribution. Some things such as salary increases came in greater than we expected, increasing that recommended contribution by $2,300. The next bucket is actuarial experience, so that includes any demographic changes that happened within the pension fund, as well as any internal updates we made to our valuation process this year. That is coming in, reducing that recommended contribution by $121,000. Asset return came in greater than expected. Again, that's using on an AVA basis, as well as deferring those gains. Last year was a really good year, and also depends on when those investment gains came into the fund. And then the last bucket there is contributions came in less than expected, increasing that recommended contribution by $21,800.
Question? Of course. Back to the actuarial experience row. What demographic, give me an example of a demographic where that would cause that to decrease or shrink.
Sure. Let's see here. To a demographic experience that would decrease, it would probably be like a termination from the fund. The fund is no longer liable for salaries for that member. They're no longer entitled to a benefit. So we would see that recommended contribution decrease because the fund is no longer liable for that member.
Let me give you a further example on that. So we had an employee who resigned and took back their liability, basically. So the fund is technically a forever fund. If you're in the fund, you're in there forever until you buy out of it. So we had an employee who resigned their position, but also elected to withdraw their pensionable assets.
Understood. Thank you. Clarifying.
Long-term issue.
Normally we call that a refund of contributions. The pension fund refunded that back to the member, so the fund is no longer liable for that member.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions before I move on? So this next slide is just a breakdown of that recommended contribution. So the recommended contribution is composed of two pieces. The first being employer normal cost, which is just the cost of your active members accruing an additional year of service. And that's coming in at $353,697. And then that second piece there is the amortization of that unfunded actuarial accrued liability that I mentioned on that first slide, that $10.02 million. So that's amortizing over that amortization period in your funding policy. And if you add both of those up, you get to your full recommended contribution amount of $1,146,448.
What's the amortization period?
So if you look back on that first slide, your funding policy is being advertised over 18 years.
18.
So by 2040. Very much in line with state statute with that one. Moving on here. So these are just some of the demographic changes that did happen within the fiscal year. So there were 3 members who were hired, 1 member who terminated employment, and then there was 1 retiree who passed away during the year who also had a surviving spouse. And then in addition, there were 22 inactive members who continued to collect benefits, and you can see the impacts of all of those things there. Any questions on that? These next 2 slides kind of go hand in hand. It's just the age and service distribution of the Police Pension Fund's active population. Just kind of gives us an idea of what expected benefit payments are going to be looking like over the next 5 to 10 years. And then if you flip to that next slide, it mentions that expected benefit payments, what we expect to see over the next 5 to 10 years. So over the next 5 years, it's going to be about a 35% increase. And then over the next 10 years, it's going to be about a 67% increase in those benefit payments. And this is just a reconciliation of your change in fair value of assets. So started the year out at $23.63 million, and then ended the fiscal year at $21.43 million. You'll notice probably a very important one there is that return on investments, almost a $1.9 million loss, resulting in about an 8.06% loss for the year.
Yes.
Question, that varies on it's a different report. It's the numbers probably come from Anne Marie later, but I show 3.3 million as our unrealized loss. This is showing 1.8. Why would there be such a variance? It's just the timing?
One could definitely be a timing thing, and also we take a snapshot. Our valuation is for the fiscal year, so 5/1/21 all the way to 4/30/22. So if you get any other report.
So you missed June.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
So yeah, if you continued missing May and June, yeah, definitely that includes even more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So definitely. All right. So yeah, this next 2 slides here, or this next slide here, is just some key risk management metrics we like to measure from year to year. Those first 2 go hand in hand. The fair value of assets is currently less than your liability of inactive members. And then I'll touch on that second point of the ratio of benefit payments to the fair value of assets. So that's literally taking what you paid out in benefit payments for the year, dividing it by your ending fair value of assets, and that's coming in at 6.8%. That's exactly where you guys want to be. We normally look for that to be right under your expected rate of return assumption, which that's right in line with that kind of theory there. And then those last two bullets, just some information. I'll touch on that last one there, the expected rate of return. If you reduced that rate of return assumption from 7% to 6.75%, we would see about a 9.45% increase in the recommended contribution, or about $108,000 higher. And if nobody has any questions, I'll go ahead and flip on to the next slide here. This is our calculation of what we call the alternative contribution. So this is basically our attempt to match the IDOI's, Illinois Department of Insurance, funding policy. So their funding policy is using a projected unit credit method, targeting 90% funded by 2040. So that this is our best estimate of using that. We're not using the same assumptions as them, such as expected rate of return, different types of mortality rates, stuff like that. But that number for this year is coming in at $842,525, which is about $304,000 less than our full recommended. Any questions on that number there?
When you look at these, you're saying that we're basically 68% funded, right?
Correct. On the Navy.
Compared to everybody else, what are we in the top fourth, or where would we stand as far as how we stand with other municipalities?
Sure. Yeah. With so we work probably with 300 to 400 other fire and police pension funds, and right around the average. You guys are sitting right around the average. I think our average is 65, 66%. So you guys are right in line with about every other fund that we work with. So you guys are looking good.
So what you're saying is we're kind of in the middle, but like, let's say, what is the best funded village? Where are they at?
There are some funds that do they contribute, probably over contribute, that are 150, 160% funded. Obviously, that's not a realistic goal for most municipalities, but there are funds that's very few and far between. Maybe like 3 to 5 in the entire state of Illinois that we work with that actually have that. But that is definitely not the norm. I don't think that should be expected for most municipalities to.
Are they in the Chicagoland area, or?
I'm trying to think of one right now. I know that one that I directly work with, maybe not super close to here, but McHenry Township FPD, they're actually quite well funded, right around 170% funded. But I know they're kind of up and coming, so they're a little bit of a different situation. But yeah, I mean, right around 65, 66% is our average. So
don't forget, if they're new and they have a few members, we're
Right.
talking percentages.
7 members.
That's my next question. So if it's
real quick.
a newer village, they're not paying out, but they're collecting a lot of money, right? That's correct? Or like,
be able to read that?
if it's a newer village, they don't have the pension liability. They don't have to pay the pensions, but they're collecting pensions.
Yeah, so they don't have as much active members. You guys are pretty
Correct.
split between active and inactive members. So yeah, they don't have that retiree or disabled liability.
Right.
Yeah, it's not apples to apples.
Yeah, yeah. So definitely different situation. It's not. It's definitely not prudent to look at that and say, oh, we should definitely do that. Definitely much different situation. So. Awesome. And then this next slide here is just some projections we normally produce for you guys every single year. Again, trying to project out that statutory minimum over the next 6-7 years, just to kind of give you guys an idea of what your budget will be looking like, contributing to the police pension fund each year. Yes?
So I love this report, so pardon me.
Yeah.
You had mentioned a figure of 1.146 that is something that's considered unfunded liability, but that number doesn't show up here on this screen. I see 1,040,000, but I was on, I think you're page 4. This shows page 11. On page 4, it was showing $1,146,000. I'm just wondering what the variance is.
So the variance between what? Like those two recommended contribution amounts?
$1,146,000 versus what this shows, $1,040,000.
So
Yes.
essentially the difference is the statutory minimum contribution is the lowest number that the state will let you contribute to your pension fund. As an example, if you get sales taxes at all, which go through the state of Illinois, they will hold them and garnish them if you don't make the statutory minimum contribution. That has a amortization actuarial factor of 90% by 2040. It also has different mechanisms in it for growth, investment returns, mortality tables, as Ian said. They might say that you live to 80 or 85 or have different definition of a survivor's benefit, versus what Lauterbach and Amon says is if you'd like to be 100% under a different table, you have to contribute more. In effect, they're saying we have a higher standard at LNA, not wrong, not right, just what their prescription is to be 100% based on their actuarial assumptions and beliefs. So there's a difference in what they're trying to get you to do. If you want to comply with state law, 840, 980, 1040, 1090, et cetera, that's just to comply with state law and keep all your sales taxes coming, et cetera. The other thing is if you want to go above and beyond 90% by 2040, under a different actuarial system, you have to contribute that $300-ish thousand more to reach that policy goal under those financial assumptions. So that's why you're seeing two different numbers of statutory minimum versus actuarial recommendation.
And a follow-up, since we're going to have a couple workshops coming up, I think it's important that we as trustees really pay attention to the contribution requirements on those numbers accelerating. You know, I'm not content on being a 60% funded level. I consider that a D student. You know, I'd rather be higher. I know it's a wish list, I know it's a dream, but if we can get in the upper 70s, get in the 80s somehow as a village, I think that'd be tremendous. And I know our group is capable of doing that maybe over time. So, thank you.
Thank you. And then just that last slide there, if no one else has any questions on any of that, it's just the GAVSB solvency test, just the static projection we use. So no Tier 2 members replacing Tier 1 members in the police pension fund. We project out you're going to be able to pay benefits for those pensioners in full until 2072. And then with that, that is my presentation for you guys. I'd be happy to answer any more questions anybody has for me.
Anybody? Any members of the public have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
All right, I'd like to invite Anne Marie up for a 60-second year-end budget review. Thank you. I can read body language. I can read body language.
You can have 120.
That's good. So thank you both for presenting all this good news for the village. So I was just going to kind of talk through our 2022 final budget picture after the audit was done. These are all based upon audited numbers. Obviously, really some more good news. I'm just going to, in general, kind of talk about the general fund. All the funds are in this presentation. If you have any specific questions on the other ones, we can talk about them. But really, the general fund is the main operating fund of the village, and that's really the one that we worry about the most, maintaining a healthy fund balance in. So at the end of fiscal year 2022, based on audited numbers, our fund balance is about 61% of recurring expenditures. That is well over the board policy that was modified this year that the board approved. So we are very healthy in our general fund. Revenues were over budget. Our sales and use taxes were higher than we budgeted. Some of our utility taxes were higher. And as the auditors mentioned earlier, we did pay off our general obligation bonds. We have absolutely zero general obligation debt. And we used a transfer from the general fund of about $1.2 million. Had we not done that, we'd be even healthier. But we were able, by having such ample reserves, we were able to use that money to pay off the debt and become GO debt-free. So really, we're doing well. We're going to get another ARPA installment. Actually, it should be coming any day now. We got our first one early September. So we'll get our second ARPA installment of $731,000. So we've got that coming in. You can kind of look at the graphs, how we're trending. Revenues were higher than anticipated. Spending was slightly under what we budgeted. So we did really, really well in the general fund. We touched on the police pension fund. The funding status is a good funding status, as Ian said. a couple things to remember is we do usually fund on the minimum contribution as opposed to the recommended, so it's just something for the board to think about going forward. In addition, we are getting to the point where our fund is a little bit more mature, whereas we're paying more out to our beneficiaries than we're collecting in non-investment revenue every year. So it's just something to keep in mind.
Here's what I found.
Oh, and here's what Siri found. So that's really all that I have. If there's any specific questions that anybody has, I can answer those questions.
No? No? Even Russ doesn't have a question.
Wow, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hang out here for 1 minute. You're Emery. You're next on the agenda. Hang out.
Yes, that will take us to item 8D, consideration of Q1 fiscal year 2023 budget adjustments. Anne Marie.
Okay, so.
Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So these are budget adjustments. A lot of them are really just cleanup, and I have to put my glasses back on to be able to read that. Most of them are related to the project that Dave had presented earlier, the sidewalk project for Crammel and 79th Street. The bids did come in higher than budgeted, so we were able to utilize some of the ARPA funds in a different way to fund those sidewalk projects, and that's really what the majority of this budget adjustment is. It's governmental fund accounting. You got to have debits and credits everywhere in each fund, so that's why it looks like there's a lot of adjustments, but it's really mostly related to the same project. And we'll do these on a quarterly basis going forward, as we have for the last year, just to kind of keep our budget in line with our actual spending.
Quick question. So you mentioned that the ARPA funds are being used for this, the new developments. Is that from the ARPA funds that you're going to receive soon, or these are ARPA funds that you received earlier?
So these are ARPA funds that we received last September, and that are on hand because we haven't spent the majority of what we received.
Thank you.
I think we've only spent about 140,000 of a projected $1.4 million.
Okay.
So a significant amount of money remains on things like Garfield, Crammel, 79th, a bunch of projects that the board has given direction on.
Perfect.
Okay.
And this one does need a motion.
So do we need a motion to approve? Yes. Can I get a motion to approve the Q1 fiscal year 2023 budget adjustments?
Second.
Any questions from any of the trustees? And any questions from anybody in the public? Roll call, please.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Mattel?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Schiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa?
Yes.
6-0.
6-0, the motion passes. That takes us to item 9, public comment. Is there any public comment? There's no public comment. Okay, it takes us to 10, reports and communications from village officials. I normally always start with Anita, but I'm going to start with Tony, because I know what he wants to say.
So it's regarding the Thorntons that we just approved earlier this evening. I did go out and visit 3 of the Thorntons in the Chicagoland area. And I'd like to report that I'm very pleased with the consistency amongst the 3 Thorntons. That consistency was between the cleanliness of the bays, the parking lot. I did go inside. All of the stores looked the same. They had the same floor plan. Everything was clearly labeled where coffee was, sodas, food, and each one of these stores were staffed with anywhere between 4 and 6 people. At one store, someone actually came up to me and asked me, is there something I can help you find? You know, I was in the store at a gas station. Beer and wine is sold on the shelf, and at each one of the stores, the spirits were sold in a locked cabinet at each one of those stores. But I have to say my favorite part of the Thorntons was these 99-cent soft serve ice cream.
Oh,
in
wow.
the back. Yeah, it's delicious. And so with that, I'll continue monitoring the Thorntons, especially the one that comes to be built in Burr Ridge. I buy my gas at the Shell station. Now I'm going to have a choice between Shell and Thorntons. And I live closer to the Thorntons that'll be built. And I'm pleased to welcome them into the village of Burr Ridge.
Good, thank you. Anybody else? Reports and communications?
Yes. Well, our community engagement analyst, Hannah Wind, is in the house too, and she's done a great job with, as you all experienced, the summer concerts, and now we have the fall events to look forward to. Starting with the before the car show, we have the art fair, which is going to be done by Emder. And if you attended it last year, it was phenomenal, and I would highly encourage everyone to attend it, September 24th and September 25th. And the village events are on October 1st, starting with the car show. This is selling out fast for those who are planning to enter their cars. Space is limited, and cars must register in advance. So if you have friends who would like to participate, please let them know. It's completely free to attend and includes a variety of family-friendly activities. And with that, we also have the Taste of Burr Ridge from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Pre-sale tickets are available now. Some of our confirmed restaurants are Brookhaven Marketplace, Capri by Gigi, Johnny Cabs, Walk and Fire, Hampton Social, and many more. So there will be a Taste of Burr Ridge mailer coming out soon, so please attend, participate, and hopefully the sun gods will be smiling on us and we'll have an awesome day. So looking forward to seeing everyone around town. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other trustees? All right. I don't have much. Evan and I are guest speakers, or not guest speakers, but we are speakers at the Illinois Municipal League conference this weekend. He and I, our project was accepted on the topic of home rule versus non-home rule. I have other comments about it, but we will be taking the position as to the absurdity of having the distinction between home rule and non-home rule. And we're pushing that also as a legislative agenda for the DuPage Mayors and Manager, in which I am the chairman of the legislative committee this year. So I had a little to say on what the agenda is going to be. So that's coming up this Saturday at IML. And that's all I have. Now, unless there's anybody else, can I get a motion to go into closed session to discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees under 5 ILCS 120/2C1, and to adjourn thereafter?
Yes, you're going to adjourn into closed session.
Okay, so
so
we're going to
will not be returned.
So it'll be a motion to adjourn into closed session to discuss that item that I just read.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Schiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa?
Yes.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Mattel?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
6-0.
6-0, the motion passes. We're going into closed session and we're adjourned.